1974 Suzuki TM250 in the What's It Worth segment. We got all that and a whole lot more coming up on Vintage Motocross Q&A.
Hi, you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll be right back.
We gotta pray, Rick. We gotta
after this prayer.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Joe Abbate, and you are watching Vintage Motocross Q&A. Thank you for joining me tonight. If you are watching the show on Facebook or you're on YouTube, please share it. Share it with your friends on Facebook, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I usually mention things here about supporters and sponsors. As you can see at the bottom of the screen, we've got a new little crawler at the bottom, and it shows all of our Vintage Motocross Q&A supporters. So I want to thank you all, and you can become a Vintage Motocross Q&A supporter for just a one-time payment of $49.95. Okay, and for that, you get a shirt, you get a poster, and you get some really cool swag from AMSOIL. New sponsor this week is PJK Vintage. I want to thank Jerry Kent for being a supporter of Vintage Motocross Q&A, and Jerry was also not only a supporter of the show, Jerry was a customer of mine many, many years ago. Thank you so much, Jerry Kent. Okay, let's get right into it. But no, let's not. I think Susie's here. Sue, you're here?
Yeah.
Hang on now. Where are you? There you are.
Right here.
Yeah.
Here I am. Here.
Very good. Leave the comedy to me. No,
Oh, okay.
I'm only kidding.
You know, don't you want to know what I'm giving away tonight?
I do. Why don't you tell us?
I am giving away lots of AMSOIL swag tonight. We have it. We have key fobs. We have, I don't know what he sent, but he sent a whole box of goodies. So that's what you're getting.
All right. I want to thank Russell Waters of AMSOIL for sending us that huge box of goodies this weekend. Yeah, we'll be giving them away here a little bit later on the show, and Susie will be back as well. In the meantime, let's get right down to the Moto Showcase, and I'll tell you about the Moto Showcase. In the Moto Showcase tonight, we've got a 1975 Puch Twin Carb. The Puch Twin Carb refers to the legendary 1975-76 Puch MC250 motocross factory race bike, which featured a 32mm Bing carburetor. In fact, it had two. It had magnesium cases and an unprecedented dual induction system. Ridden by Harry Everts, this machine famously won the 1975 FIM 250cc Motocross World Championship. Its dual carb setup utilized two 32mm Mikuni carburetors, one feeding a traditional piston port layout, the second feeding the rotary valve from the side of the engine. The power delivery and design was engineered by Hubert Binder to combine with low-end power with a top-end rush, pumping out an astonishing 52 horsepower from a 250. Exotic materials on this bike, extensive titanium and hardware, and it had a special crankshaft. It had a lightweight magnesium engine cases, hubs, forks, and it brings the total weight down to about only 204 pounds. And we're going to keep running the pictures here. The suspension was equipped it was advanced for the time. It had long travel Marzocchi forks on it, works Coney on the rear. It is an extremely rare bike. Production numbers, there's only a handful of them ever made. The original factory works machines in 1975, followed by a very limited commercial run of roughly 97 replica units, often called the Harry Everts replica, sold in the 1976 season. Examples of this production, replica twin carb MC250 are exceptionally rare. They are highly sought after by vintage motocross collectors, with values reaching an upward of $30,000. Quite an amazing bike, the 250 twin carb Puch, and I did have one. The one you did see there was in my shop for a bit. A friend of mine did own the bike, and it was here for a little bit of a service, filter, chain. I had to do something with the petcock on the tank and a couple of other odds and ends. But yeah, an amazing bike, the 250 twin carb Puch. Although Harry Everts' bike is a little bit different from the production bike. Harry's bike had probably 90% titanium nuts and bolts and hardware. There were some other things on the suspension that were a lot different from the production bike, but the production bike was absolutely astonishing, very, very rare, and certainly trade upward for over $30,000. And that's it for tonight in the Moto Showcase.
God said, let there be light, and there was light. Preston Petty said, let there be light, and he gave you this, 1,200 lumens with a rechargeable battery on the back. Hook it up to your bike. No wires, no fuss, no muss. Get over to PrestonPettyProducts.com today. Thanks, Paul Stannard.
All right, the next time try this segment is brought to you by Motion Pro. Be sure to visit them online at motionpro.com. And if you are either changing a set of shocks on your bike or doing anything with your swing arm, this is going to help you quite a bit. Check this out.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Oscar. Tonight I want to talk to you about how we're going to maximize the performance on the current components on your rear suspension of your motorcycle. So what I want to talk to you about tonight is improving the overall feel of your rear suspension and putting a lot less stress on the shocks you purchase. The first thing I want to show you is it's very important that neither the shock at the pivot, at the frame, or the swing arm bind when it's torqued down and assembled in the bike. And so how do we guarantee we don't bind the assembly when we torque everything down? So the first thing I want to start with the front of the swing arm. And what we have here, I'll take this out here. All these swing arms are a variation of this modern swing arm to vintage swing arms, are same concept. But basically, I measured the width of this unit here, and I measured 41, 42 millimeters, and then I pushed the sleeve out. When I measured it, I ended up getting 42.72. So there's about a 1.25 millimeter wider sleeve than the width of the swing arm. So when you push that sleeve through the bushing or needle bearings in this case, and you go to put your axle through. Once I torque this down, it doesn't matter how tight this is, torque-wise. It still pivots because the inner bushing is mathematically wider than the swing arm. In this case, 1 millimeter or so, and it's not enough to give it a lot of side play where you're throwing a chain, but it's enough to keep that pivot clean, keep the torque on. So that's the front of the swing arm. I'll talk about the shocks. Now these shocks, this is my Woods bike. It's a set of work shocks, but it doesn't matter what. They all have some kind of insert that bolts into your swing arm and into your frame. And what you like to do is get them out, take your bushing out, and clean them. And then sometimes there's another bushing that protects in the works condition. They have a little neoprene bumper to kind of give it cush. So when I measured this, the shock width was 21.7. I made my spacer 22.5, and so wider than the shock itself. And when I put this in, and I assemble it in the swing arm, I have this torque down, the full amount of torque. Okay, I've got that, and then the same thing top of the frame. The shock pivots very clean. And there's no up and down side to side play, and that pivot's clean. And I know I've done the same. I measured the bushing on top, making sure that the bushing is wider. Now these shocks come with bushings, but they're a one size fits all. You have to be very specific on your frame. I know exactly the width of my swing arm, my opening of my frame. I want to make sure my bushing fits in snug, doesn't rattle inside the frame, and it's still wider than this. So once you have everything torqued down and you have a clean pivot here, and if you had the shock, you could swing the shock cleanly, it's torqued down, and the swing arm moves cleanly, it doesn't matter what brand of shock you're buying, you're gonna really help out that shock. Find the small bumps, especially coming into corners, braking bumps, or in this case, the Woods bike. You come into those corners, there's little roots and stuff. It's gonna be able to feel those first few small bumps and let the bike settle to where you need to get it. It's not going to be like a rigid, stiff feel or the bike's skittish. either in motocross or in the woods. And if you're not buying your suspension, you're going to make whatever shocks you decide to purchase a lot better. So you don't have to go and go back to your shock guy and ask him why it's not working. Make sure you've checked these three components. Do the math. If it's not correct, make your own spacer. Now next time try that, and you'll have a better ride.
There you go, Robert Oscar Pomeroy with a really, really great tip on the next time try this segment, okay? And we are moving on to the next portion of our show this evening. All right, it is the Here's the Problem segment, sponsored by Gordon McCaffer and McCaffer Welding. Here's the first question. From John Nunez, I followed the video of yours on how to polish lower fork legs. It worked great. Well, I'm glad it worked out for you, John. My question now is, how do I protect the lower legs with clear coat? There's a couple of ways that you can do that. You can, of course, sand them, Scotch-Brite them, you can polish them, and you can anodize them after that with a clear anodizing, okay? You can do that. But that's nice on a show bike, and it really truly is correct. However, if it's a race bike or you're going to ride it, if that anodizing does chip or powder coating, which is really what I meant to say, you can powder coat them clear. You can anodize them too. But if either of those, like if you're going to race the bike, you might want to consider something else, something that you can repair. And we've put a little video together here for you, and I think you're going to enjoy it. So check this out. And here's the answer to your question, John.
Tonight, I want to talk to you about clear coat. A lot of your bikes have clear coat on the lower fork legs. There are also other parts of the bike, but you want a quality clear coat, not something you're just going to go get at one of your local Home Depots or a place like that. What I've discovered is this, Spray Max 2K Clear Glamour. What makes this stuff really special is it comes with a hardener, just like a professional would use out of a spray gun. It's got a little nozzle on the bottom like this, and it's got a cap that comes on the top. You put this cap on the bottom, you press down on it, you shake it up for a couple of minutes, and then you can use it just like you would any other spray, except it comes out a little bit thicker and a lot shinier. Now, to do this, you can do it with your forks apart, or you could do them with the forks together. I chose to do a set with the forks together. It looks just like this. I masked off the bottom, and I masked off the studs that are on the bottom over here. I then did a little finishing with a Scotch-Brite pad, and then I followed up with some alcohol to get it nice and clean before I was ready to spray it. I then took it outside and I sprayed it out there. I would strongly advise, if you are not in a well-ventilated area, that you certainly use a mask when you use this product. It seems very toxic. It's got a very, very strong chemical smell to it. It's not something you really want to use inside. Outside, you'd be fine. The lower fork leg came out really nicely. Two tips I wanted to give you. Also, don't forget, mask off the studs that are on the bottom. You don't really want to get clear on the threads of that. Also, I replaced the drain plug or the drain bolt that's in this Honda leg with this screw. This way, you don't get clear on that, and if you have a nice polished piece of hardware, you could put it back in when you're done, but you're not going to get clear coat inside that threaded area of your drain plug of your fork. So, there you have it. Stuff works pretty well. I've used it here on the show. And that's it for the next time try this segment, which is brought to you by Vinco. Keep the ride going.
All right, we'll be right. Come on now. There you go. We'll be right back after this short break. Stick around.
I'm Jerry Maddox.
And I'm Ryder Maddox in sunny California.
And you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, hosted by Joe Abbate.
All right, it is time for the What's It Worth segment. It's worth segment tonight concerns a Suzuki 1974 TM250. This is, of course, the segment of the show where you, the viewers at home, guess how much you think this bike recently sold for. And when you do, you will post it in the comments and we'll see it there. We should have an answer for you almost immediately. If not, before the end of the show, I will post who the winner is. And yeah, post it in the comments and we will go from there. Okay. Let us know how much you think the bike recently sold for. You get something really cool from AMSOIL. All right. 1974 Suzuki TM250L Champion was reportedly refurbished under its previous ownership in 2019. It was acquired by the seller in 2025. Finished in yellow, the motorcycle is powered by a 246cc two-stroke single paired with a 5-speed transmission. Equipment includes Mikuni carburetor. TM250L is offered at no reserve in Virginia with off-road use bill of sale only. The bodywork is refinished under the prior ownership in yellow with black and white accents. Wire spoke wheels measuring 21 inches up front and 18 out in the rear are laced to alloy rims. They are mounted to X-Grip Super X Gear F tires showing a 2016 date code. 246cc two-stroke single is factory rated at 27 horsepower at 21 foot-pounds of torque. Features a kickstarter, an electronic ignition, a black finished expansion chamber, and it also includes, it comes with a silencer as well. The seller states that the engine was overhauled under prior ownership with a 70.5 millimeter oversized piston, rings alongside with crankcases and bearing modification to run premixed fuel. The oil injection system has been bypassed and the two-stroke oil tank was removed under previous ownership. So all things considered, looking at that bike, a beautiful race bike, how much do you think it recently sold for? $2,000, $2,500, $4,500. I will clip this thing to the back of my shirt on the next show. How much? Let's find out. This bike recently sold for $2,200 plus a $250 buyer premium. So $2,450. $2,450. I will check quickly here. I'm seeing $2,900 from Kokoski, $6,300, $5,200, $3,300, $29. Looks like everybody's over by quite a bit, and I could see how that could happen because this looks like a whole lot more than a $4,400 bike. Okay,
That's for sure.
Yeah, the closest looks like Pat Young at $2,900 without going over, and Kokoski too. Jeff Kokoski also. So I'll tell you what, Pat Young, Jeff Kokoski. I'll send you both something from AMSOIL. Fair enough? Okay. Kokoski, you should really not be a part of the contest as you are sort of a big part of the show here where you're doing, the Did You Know segment. But we're going to overlook that right now. And Pat Young and Jeff Kokoski, you were the closest without going over. Okay. We are going to take one more commercial break and we'll be right back.
I'm Pat Maroney, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A, and we'll be right back. I get asked often, what's the most important thing on Clunker? Answer's simple, it's me. That's why I use Full Circle Racing wheels prepped by Tom McAllister. So should you. Watch this and learn why. When racing vintage motocross where suspension is very limited, your wheels can be the difference between winning or serious injury. We chose to run Full Circle Racing wheels because of the super high quality materials and the heavy duty spokes used. Prepped by Tom McAllister, I have the confidence on the track to push way harder through the rough stuff and the bigger jumps, knowing my wheels are going to stay under me. Hey, Clunker may be 50 years old, but his wheels are brand new, and yours should be too. Call Tom McAllister at Full Circle Racing today.
All right, we are back live at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Jeff Kokoski says I don't have to send him anything. Well, isn't that nice of you, Jeff? But thank you for all you do for us here at the show. In the meantime, www.theoilpeople.shopamsoil.com. Russell Waters is running a great special right now on Dominator 2-stroke oil. It's regularly $81, but for the people who watch Vintage Motocross Q&A, just $59.75. That's $59.75, okay? And split that with your friends. It's a pretty good deal. And it's great oil, too. I think Susie has the viewer appreciation prize coming up. Let's see what she's got here. Suze, you with us?
Yeah.
If I had you on camera, you'd really be with us, wouldn't you? There you go. So far, who do we have for a viewer appreciation? We got other stuff coming up too, but what do we have right now for the viewer appreciation prize?
Amsoil swag.
Yeah. Well, who are you giving it to?
Oh, you want to know?
That's when you usually do it, right after the full circle commercial.
I
You want
forgot.
it, if you need a minute, okay, no problem.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
No, I'll get. Do you
I'm
have
good.
somebody? Yeah, who do you have?
I have Tony Epperson.
Tony Epperson. Tony Epperson,
Yeah.
you are tonight's viewer appreciation winner. You will get a nice box of stuff from Amsoil. And thank you, Russell Waters. And Susie, thank you too for doing such a great job for us.
You're welcome.
At Vintage Motocross Q&A. All right. All right. It's hard to find good help these days. Anyway, what do we have coming up next? I just wanted to mention that. Yeah, you saw it on the crawler at the bottom of the screen. You want to become a Vintage Motocross Q&A supporter for just $50. You get a shirt, you get your name on the crawler or on the board, and you're going to get a poster too while they last. And when we're going to run out of those posters, well, I'm going to find more posters and you're going to win those because we just love giving stuff away here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. Okay? You know what time it is? My favorite time of the show. That's right. It is time for trivia, and let's not forget. And I'll have the slide up here a little longer this week. It's a call-in contest only. 925-784-2195. 925-784-2195. If you know the answer to the trivia question, please don't post it in the comments. Call in. 925-784-2195. This week we're giving away a really cool poster. Jim Pomeroy and Brad Lackey's 1977 and 1978 Honda RC 450 and 500s. This poster was given to us by Bill Ramsey. Okay, so I do want to thank Bill Ramsey. We don't give them away all that often. I only have a select amount of those. And but trivia is always brought to you by Motorcyclist Illustrated and Mike McCook. Okay, be sure to visit Motorcyclist Illustrated on Facebook. And here comes the question. You ready? I didn't put it on a board. It's a very simple question. Who was Jim Pomeroy's mechanic at Honda? Who was Jim Pomeroy's mechanic at Honda? If you know, call in 925-784-2195. You're going to get a brandy new sparkling poster just like this. Okay? Who was Jim Pomeroy's mechanic at Honda? In the meantime, let's get on with another part of the show. The Corner brought to you by AMS Racing. Be sure to follow Dave Boydston on Facebook. Dave was busy last week. He was at Mid-Ohio. We've even got a video from Dave right now. I'll show it to you. We've got a bunch of them. We're going to be showing them to you over the next couple of weeks. Okay, check this out.
Wow, it said, come over here and check out this Penton, and I thought it'd be another green one, of course. And I go, well, I better go over there. It might be something weird. And here is the Moisive replica with the hand cone pipe. Look at no seams in the gas tank. They ran the KTM logo. They did not call it a Penton. It's got that deep Falk fender on it. Look at the expansion chamber. Check out the pipe. And see the number plate was mounted very low. This is exactly what it looked like. They even ran a black head on the silver bottom end. I've seen a few attempts at this. This is an exceptional done bike in the back of a van. And I thought I'd share it with my friends. And if you're watching, you're one of my friends. Wow. See this KTM on the seat. And this is 73. I like the louvers in the side panel. Magnesium cases with a very different finish on them. Look at the three finishes between the cases and the cylinder and the head. Pretty special. Magnesium hubs, both ends, before they were offered to the public in '74. Wow. And another guy go, hey, come over here, I want to show you something. Oh, no. Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
All right, Dave Boydston, I want to thank you for being some really great commentary from the field, especially Mid-Ohio. I've got some other videos coming up in the coming weeks, and we'll hear more from Dave Boydston, okay? You want to hear it again? All right, it is the Did You Know part of the show, brought to you by Jeff Kokoski and ARMA. Be sure to visit ARMA online at arma.org. And tonight we're going to be talking about something very, very interesting. And it's got to do... Oh, you got a winner for trivia?
I do.
All right, you know what? Before we get on with that, let's get the trivia. Let's get the trivia thing happening here, where I could hear myself and hear the guy at the same time. This is Joe Abbate. You're live on the air. Who am I speaking with?
Kevin Burgess.
Hey, Kevin Burgess. The question was, who was Jim Pomeroy's mechanic at Honda?
Arnie Beeman.
It was Arnie Beeman, and Arnie was also his mechanic at Bultaco as well. And when Jim went over to Honda, Arnie was able to secure a spot there, I think with some help from Jim. So, yeah, that's who it was. Are you a big Arnie Beeman fan?
Well, because I got the Bultaco now, I did some research on him, and yeah.
Okay. So you are an Arnie Beeman fan from way back in the Bultaco days.
Yes.
Hey, Kevin, I want to thank you for calling in, and we'll get you something out from Amsoil, okay?
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you so much for watching the show.
He gets a poster.
Oh, he gets a poster. Okay,
Yes.
we'll get you a poster.
Oh, that's fine.
All righty.
That's fine.
All righty.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Suze, thank you so much. And I do want to put up that, the flyer, the picture rather, of, here it is right here. Arnie Beeman, sometimes spelled Beeman, began working as race technician for Honda in 77. He was with Bultaco for 73 to 76. He worked with Jim Pomeroy, and from 77 to 79, he began working as a technician for Honda, serving as a wrench and mechanic for Jim Pomeroy as well. Can anybody tell me who that guy is in the middle? Huh? Type it in the comments. Tell me who the guy was in the middle. Of course, it was Arnie Beeman to the left, the late, great Jim Pomeroy to the right. But who's that guy in the middle? He goes by one name, like Cher or Elvis. All right. Just type it in the comments. We'll check on that a little bit later on. Now, as I was telling you, we are doing the Did You Know segment of the show, brought to you by ARMA, with content by Jeff Kokoski. This is something very, very interesting. And I think you're going to enjoy this very, very much. Okay. So let's get on with it. Now we can get on with it. Last week, we talked about the 1963 Hollywood blockbuster, The Great Escape, which was a fictionalized version of the actual escape by Allied pioneers from Stalag Luft 3 on March of 1944. In the segment, I mentioned the escape never involved a motorcycle chase scene, but it ended up being in the movie because actor Steve McQueen convinced the movie director John Sturgis to rewrite the script. So this week, we'll talk about another great escape and the eye of World War II. That did involve motorcycles, and something you probably never learned in history class. So, did you know the story of the 1939 ISDT? The International Six-Day Trial Enduro, or ISDE, formerly known as the International Six-Day Trials, or ISDT, is the oldest organized off-road motorcycle competition held in the world, sometimes referred to as the Olympics of motorcycling. The event pits teams of riders from countries around the world against each other in test machines, rider skills, reliability over 6 days of grueling terrain, and special tests. Now, since it's a team event, trophies are awarded to the teams with the best combined scores. The ISDT was held in England in 1913 and has occurred annually, apart from 3 interruptions in the soon-to-be 113-year-old history of 5 years during World War I, 6 years during World War II, and in 2020 during the pandemic area of COVID. Imagine that. Now, okay. During the first part of 20th century, newly mechanized armies around the world struggled with the terrain and their trucks and vehicles encountered. Since motorcycles could easily navigate the difficult conditions, some militaries incorporated motorcycle units into their ranks. For Great Britain, those early ISDTs offered a chance to not only show off their skills in their military riders, but also tested the combat readiness of the motorcycle units. In 1939, the ISDT, which was held in Salzburg, Austria, was no exception. In particular, of the 61 riders that the Great Britain sent to the event, there were 12 soldiers that comprised 3 teams, as well as other soldiers that were helpers and coordinators. All told, there were 30 British soldiers and about 70 British civilians at the event. Normally, this would have not have been the usual thing, but it was 1939 and the Bavarian Alps of Austria. So in order to understand the significance of this, we have to review some of the world history. A few years prior to the ISDT, Adolf Hitler began his rise in power in Nazi Germany. In 1919, the Treaty of Versailles, that formally ended the World War, carved up the Austro-Hungarian and German empires, resulting in the creation of a country of Austria, as well as others. Hitler, along with many ethnic Germans living in the new country of Austria, despised the treaty and wanted to be reunited with the fatherland. So, in March of 1938, it was called Anschluss, or connection. Hitler was now Chancellor of Germany, annexed Austria without firing a shot. By the fall of 1938, Hitler then turned his attention to the Sudetenland region of Czechoslovakia, where many ethnic Germans lived as well. In one of the biggest political blunders in history, Prime Minister Neville Chamberlain underestimated Hitler's aspirations, called the policy of appeasement. Britain and France signed the Munich Agreement in September of 1938, saying that they would not interfere with Hitler taking Sudetenland if Hitler agreed to no longer expand his German territory. After the agreement was signed, Hitler promptly invaded Czechoslovakia and annexed the ethnic German Sudetenland. Now, by the spring of 1939, worries in Europe had somewhat subsided. Things returned to a semi-state of normalcy. The ISDT for that year was planned for the 3rd week of August in the mountains around Salzburg, where the new Nazi administration could show off their government splendor and efficiency. That summer, teams throughout Europe began practicing for the event. But unfortunately, behind the scenes in Nazi Germany, all was not calm. Adolf Hitler ignored the Munich Agreement that was signed almost a year earlier and was plotting his next move. He wanted Poland in order to expand Germany's living areas and reclaim the land lost in World War II. But so did Joseph Stalin and the Soviets. Hitler was completely unafraid of the British and the French armies. However, he was certainly worried about the size and the strength of the Soviet Red Army, since Britain had previously signed a treaty to come to the aid of the Poles if they were invaded. Hitler knew he could not sustain a war on 2 fronts. So that spring, in the summer of 1939, the Germans and the Soviets began a secret meeting to discuss the conquest of Poland. Meanwhile, by mid-August, in British terms, arrived in Salzburg a few days ahead of the international 6-day trials in order to become familiar with the terrain they would be riding. Great Britain had won 2 of the events the previous 3 years, so there was also bragging rights on the line for 1939. Although the atmosphere was tense because of the Nazis and them being in charge, German officials pulled out all the stops with elaborate welcomes and entertainment for all the foreign competitors. Some teams even attended an opera in Salzburg where Hitler himself was there. It was to be the last time that the British soldiers got that close to the Fuhrer. Why was Hitler there? It was not because of the upcoming ISDT. 15 miles south of Salzburg, in the Alpine village of Berchtesgaden, Germany, here, Hitler had 2 mountain retreats. The Berghof and the Kaldesteinhaus were commonly called the Eagle's Nest. Just a side note, Jeff Kakasi himself has been there a couple of times, and he says if any of the viewers get a chance to go there, don't pass it up, as the scenery is absolutely fabulous. Back to the story. Hitler was staying at the Berghof, awaiting word on the final details of the negotiations with the Russians over the fate of Poland, but decided to attend the opera in nearby Salzburg. Now, the ISDT started on Monday, August 21st, 1939, and went pretty much on par with past events. The first 2 days of the competition left the motorcycle paddock in Salzburg and went north toward the former Czechoslovakian border. Because portions of the ISDTs of that era shared roads with the public, it was not unusual for competitors to have conflicts with vehicles or pedestrians. Also, the unpaved roads back then were fairly primitive, and motorcycle reliability was often an issue. Probably the most odd of the potentially unnerving part of the event was that the planned checkpoints along the ISDT route were monitored by German Wehrmacht soldiers and Nazi government representatives along the ISDT officials. By the end of the second day, a couple of the British competitors lost time and points due to the crashes with autos, but the British Army A-team was there. and they were ready for first place against the German teams. However, the atmosphere began to change on the third day of the competition. Participants found out the Nazis and the Soviets had formally signed a non-aggression pact called the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. Hitler and Stalin agreed to divide Poland and the Baltic states between themselves without attacking each other. The Nazi officials at the ISDT bought into the government's propaganda that the pact guaranteed peace with Eastern Europe. However, the Brits at the event knew that this was not the case. They recognized that once Hitler violated the Munich Agreement from 1938 and attacked Poland, it would trigger a response from Great Britain and France to come to the aid of the Poles, most likely plunging the world into yet another global conflict. Depending on the timing of the perceived attack and the British response, those British soldiers at the ISDT event would immediately be trapped behind enemy lines. On that evening of the third day, competitors gathered around radios listening to the broadcasts on the BBC. They learned that any French citizens were to leave the country immediately, but no instructions for the British were announced. On the morning of the fourth day of the ISDT, the British civilians were heartened how calm the British soldiers were. So all the teams left the paddock for that day's competition, which led them to somewhere near southwest of Salzburg down to the Tyrolean Alps. During that day, the ISDT teams managed frantically. They traded telegrams with London so they would know what to do. That evening, word came that all British subjects should leave immediately. However, the British soldiers were in a bit of a quandary. Since they took orders from the British military, they were not yet instructed to do so. And because the British A team was still in the running to win the ISDT, all of the British military teams remained in the competition. By dawn Friday, August 25th, the fifth day of the ISDT, most of the British civilian teams had packed and were leaving. However, the British military teams once again left Salzburg paddock to begin the day's competition, this time heading north of Salzburg up into the German territory. However, during the day, Colonel C.V. Bennett, commander of the British military teams, finally received word from the War Office in London indicating to him that the German troops were on the move and that his soldiers and any remaining British citizens should make their way out of the country as soon as possible. As the exhausted squad reached the finish line on Friday, they were told by the Colonel Bennett to prepare for immediate departure. That night, a convoy of British racers, mechanics, officers, factory reps, and a handful of civilians formed a column of 2 trucks, 2 cars, and 15 motorcycles and bugged out of the International Six-Day Trials. Fortunately, fellow motorcyclists and German counterpart to Colonel Bennett, Colonel Grimm, understood the plight of the British and was sympathetic toward them. In a true act of compassion and sportsmanship, Colonel Grimm accompanied the British contingent in order to intervene on their behalf in the event that they were stopped during the night by Nazi checkpoints, which they were. Rather than take a direct route to Salzburg to head west down to the winding Tyrolean Alps to the Swiss border, they decided that the fastest way to make the 250-mile journey was to head northwest to Munich and then make their way to Feldrich, Austria, on the border near Switzerland and Liechtenstein, using the new Autobahn road system that Hitler developed for rapid troop movements. After securing enough fuel to make it to Switzerland, the British contingents rode through the night after competing all day to make it to the Swiss border. Streaming past the opposite direction was an endless military convoy of 1 million German troops headed for the Polish border. So, on the morning of the 6th day, instead of charging off to capture the ISDT trophy, the completely fatigued British Army team crossed into Switzerland. After seeing that the last men were to safety, Colonel Bennett bade farewell to the Colonel Grimm and stepped aside across the border himself. It'd be a long time before an officer of the British Army would again shake hands as a friend with an officer from the Wehrmacht. After a few hours of rest, British contingent rode almost nonstop through Switzerland across to northern France to the ferry docks of Calais and back home to Great Britain. The German invasion of Poland was set for 4:30 a.m. the next morning, Saturday, August 26th, which had been the final day for the International Six-Day Trials competition. But Hitler would postpone the invasion by a week because Benito Mussolini, Italian troops, were not yet ready to help Germany to deal with the response from Great Britain and France once Poland was attacked. On September 1st, 1939, Germany invaded Poland. 2 days later, Britain and France declared war on Germany, and the world changed forever. As for the 1939 ISDT, Germany declared itself the winner, basically by default, but the results were never ratified by the FMM, so there has never been a formally recognized winner. Jeff Kokoski, I got chills reading that. That was really a very, very interesting story, and how history and motorcycling were joined together during that most tumultuous time in world history. Jeff Kokoski, thanks so much for that segment. I hope everyone enjoyed that. I'm sure they did. It was absolutely fascinating the first time I read it before doing the show, and while doing the show, it was very, very interesting as well. I am just going to jump out of place here for just a second. We're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
I'm Ron Lasheen.
I'm Steve Simons.
I'm Gary Simmons, and you're watching Vintage Motocross Q&A with Joe Abbate.
Okay, we are back at Vintage Motocross Q&A, and it is that. In Motocross History is brought to you by Racer X. Be sure to visit them online at racerx.com, or you can get a subscription online as well. 1973, Edson Dye, still thriving Inter-Am Series, visited Ward Robinson's Unadilla Valley Sports Center. The winner was future four-time FIM Motocross World Champion Heikki Mikkola of Finland. Mikkola would top Czech rider Falta and the Dutchman Pierre Kosmakis, who rode for Yamaha and lived in America as an expatriate. He was considered the top American, though he was actually just a top AMA rider. The highest finishing true U.S. rider was Gary Chaplin, who had garnered fourth on his Mako. With that win, Mikkola wrapped up the title for the 5-race Inter-Am Series, with Kosmakis coming in second. The race was considered the trial run for what would eventually be the 250cc USGP at Unadilla, which didn't happen until 1978. Okay? And we mentioned about the winner. We did that segment too. And I got to space these out a little bit better. All right, Mike McCook, I know you're looking at the wire. I know you're looking at it. It's hard to keep behind my back, Mike. All right? I know that makes you a little nervous. I'm sorry. Mike McCook and the Outer Limits Group have been a big help to us here at Vintage Motocross Q&A. You'll be hearing more about the Outer Limits Group in the near future, okay? Have you ever heard of segment is brought to you by Sunrise Vapor Blasting. And I got something really interesting for you this week. The bike is called a Mondial. Well, let's learn more about that. FB Mondial is a motorcycle manufacturer founded in 1929 in Milan, Italy. They dominated World Championship racing from 1949 through 57, winning 5 manufacturers' World Championships in a short period of time. Mondial was born under the impulse of the Bozzelli brothers, Luigi, Carlo, Ettore, and Ada. FB stands for Fratelli Bozzelli, which translates to the Bozzelli brothers. Their workshop opened for sales and service, but within a few months, it would soon become clear that it was marked demand for to build a more economically built motorcycle. During this year as a competitive motorcyclist, their father, who was a pilot, Count Giuseppe Bozzelli, had met Oreste Girazzani, and a well-known engine builder. It was Oreste's farm in Bologna that FB established its first production site, dedicating itself for construction of motorbikes. In 1943, FB decided to expand their production capability and buy modern machinery to increase production. Unfortunately, they could not put their practice into place because on July 24, 1943, a heavily Allied bombing struck Bologna railway station near the plant. The machinery survived, but it was all commandeered by the military. The Driziani family and the Bozzelli family continued to the end of the war and reconstructed the beginning of financial backing by the Bozzelli family. The company relaunched in 1948 as FB Mondial. Mondial found early racing success, winning their first and what would become 5 world championships in only their second year of production. While during that time, manufacturers like Augusta and Ducati produced lightweight 2-stroke motorcycles, the Mondial factory had a more unique approach, specializing in high-performance, small displacement engines. Now, there's a whole lot more that goes along with this, and much of the production of each motorcycle was done by hand, which kept their production down to about 1,000, maybe 1,500 units. Mondial would continue their success for a number of years, sticking to their methodology. And in 1957, Soichiro Honda approached Mondial owner Count Bozzelli to purchase the Mondial race bike, which the firm had just won the 125 and 250cc World Championships on. Bozzelli gave Mr. Honda a racing Mondial. Honda used this bike as standard, to which aspired to many of the lightweight Honda race bikes that were to come. In 1957, the Grand Prix season, many major Italian motorcycle manufacturers, including Galera, Moto Guzzi, and Augusta, announced that they would pull out of Grand Prix competition. Mondial, despite their success, had joined them. This marked the beginning of the decline of the popularity of motorcycle sales and the company. After that, Mondial continued for a while, buying engines from other factories the same way Rotax did. But shortly after that, Mondial came to a close due to financial problems. They did have a resurgence about 20 years ago, and Mondials are out there today, although in limited numbers. So now you know what a Mondial is, okay? Now we are going to take a commercial break. We're going to hear from ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Parkinson with Replica Motorcycle Parts. I'm sitting here with our test bike, which is ridden by Jerry Maddox. Carries the #1 plate in the U.S. Let's go over a couple of the parts that we've got on here. We've got our ignition cover with the case saver built into it, so that when the chain comes off, you're not damaging your cases. Spacer, foot pegs. Jerry runs our air box. Seat brackets, keeps the seat on tight so he doesn't fall off when he's going over the whoops. And then this side, Jerry runs a couple little things, a lot of little rubber parts on the bike and stuff are all done by us. And then down here we've got our brake pedal, which has got needle bearings in there, and then it's got a wider toe peg so it gives them a real nice, clean, easy to use brake. And then this is our latest part. This is a CR250 type knuckle. In fact, Honda used them on the last versions of the MR175, and this is a real trick aluminum Kickstarter arm. So that gives them lightweight, strength, and reliability more than anything else. Reliability.
All right, we are back at Vintage Motocross Q&A, and be sure to visit ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com online. They got Kickstarter knuckles for CZs, Kawasaki stuff, even some Honda Mugen replica stuff, which nobody makes here in the United States. Stuff for Suzuki's, they got stuff for Kajivas, and of course, you've heard me mention before the silencers for the 1973, 1974 Honda CR125 and 250s. So get over to ReplicaMotorcycleParts.com and get yourself some really cool stuff that I'm certain that you would need. Not just the happiest music you've ever heard in your life. It is time for the announcements, and the announcements are brought to you by the International Motocross Museum. Now, I've been mentioning the Bear Creek Sportsman events throughout the last month or so, but next week there's one, August 1st. August 1st and 2nd, it's a dual sport quarry run. You might want to get up there. If you're in New York State, that happens next week. Vintage Motocross Day, September 17th, 9 to 5. That is brought to you by the Christian Motocross Club. And the track will be modified to accept, shorter travel bikes. It'll be a lot of fun, okay? That's out in Walton, Indiana. We've also got the Vintage Day at the Ranch that happens in Warwick, New York. Beautiful Warwick, New York, up on Jessup Road. There's they got e-pedal bikes going there. They got vintage off-road bikes, 1990 and older. They got a swap meet. Got a whole bunch of stuff going on. Here's a great event I actually had the privilege of being an announcer for about 4 years. The Langston Motorcycle Show is back this coming October 24th. It is free to the public, and it is a fabulous place to be down there in Paris, California. Always a lot of Southern California legendary racers show up there, and some of the best bikes you will ever see. Okay, Coyote Creek Vintage Trials. If you're into vintage trials, you want to go to this event. It is a national. Okay, so look them up online at arma.org, and you can get more information on the Coyote Creek. And that event happens to be, it happens to be August 1st. So that's right around the corner. That's just a couple of days from now. Vintage MX Series, Sunday, August 9th, just a week from now. Calgary, Wild Rose Track. Okay, so if you're up there and you want to get some vintage motocross racing in, you might want to get yourself ready. Get ready to go up there to Calgary. We've got the Moto Barn Presents, a bittersweet event. The Steve Wise Memorial. Of course, everybody's events are listed. ARMA, American Classic Racing, PVR. A lot of people talking about the Zor Motocross Park event coming up. That's on September 25th. Don't forget the granddaddy of them all. It's freezing winter, and where's everybody may be? We'll be warm and toasty at the York Swap Meet. That's January 24th. At York Swap Meet in York, Pennsylvania. Jeff Kokoski's got a couple of books. Jeff Conboy has a couple of books left. A Bultaco book. Okay, I think he's got one or two left of the Jim Pomeroy autographed copies. So go over and find Jeff Conboy on Facebook, and you can get a copy of that fabulous Bultaco book. All right. Once again, thank you, Jerry Kent, for becoming a supporter of Vintage Motocross Q&A. You and PJK Racing. Also, if you want to get some shirts, you can get some for just $24.95. In fact, you can get tank tops for even less than that. So whether it's t-shirts, tank tops, hoodies, or sweatshirts in any color, any size, they all start off at $24.95, and you can get a hat too for just $22 more. My advice, if you're going to go for $25 and just get a shirt, why don't you go for $49, get a shirt, get a poster, and become a supporter of Vintage Motocross Q&A. Did we get everything wrapped up? I think we did. I want to thank Jeff Kokoski for that amazing segment on the 1939 ISDT, and also Dave Boyden, everybody else who contributes to the show, Mike McCook, Matt Lewis, and of course you, the viewers at home, who tune in every week and give me a reason to be here. Okay, well, that about wraps it up for Vintage Motocross Q&A for tonight. Thank you again for supporting the show, and we will see you next time. Hang on, I'm not going to do it that way. Why is this thing still up? Why is that up like that? That and not this. Well, look, that's it for Vintage Motocross Q&A. We'll see you next time.